Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren DeWall, and I'm a market consultant here at Newbook, where I've had the pleasure of working with outdoor accommodation operators for the past 2 years. In that time, one thing I've learned is that small changes can lead to big results, especially when it comes to boosting revenue without blowing the marketing budget. You may have noticed I have an American accent. However, I actually live in Adelaide, South Australia, so I am one of you. And today's webinar, Boosting Incremental Revenue, Smart Strategies for Outdoor Stays, is all about uncovering those high impact, low cost opportunities. So whether you're managing a caravan park, a luxury glamping resort, or a mix of the two, we're going to share practical ideas that you can implement right away to increase your bookings, especially during those harder to fill midweek and off-peak periods. Now, in a few minutes, I'll be introducing our special guests, Jordy and Lisa from Hipcamp. I first met the Hipcamp team in the US actually at the glamping show in 2023, and I was immediately drawn to their beautiful branding. I think I might be in their target demographic because it really spoke to me. And I also noticed the team's genuine passion for the industry. In fact, at the time, some of the team were on a road trip around the country to get out and meet their clients, recruit new clients, and it was so nice to see a team really enjoying the amazing industry that we work in. Since then, I've recommended Hipcamp to many of my clients, and the feedback has been incredible. More and more operators are telling me that Hipcamp is driving a significant number of bookings for their business. So whether you're already using Hipcamp or just curious about how it works, you're in for some great insights today. Now, before I introduce you to Jordy and Lisa, I'll cover off some housekeeping. First off, any questions, you can pop them straight into the chat. We will try to answer them as we go, but if we don't get to it, we will have some more time at the end to answer more questions. Throughout the webinar, I'll be using campground inclusive terminology. So you may hear me refer to campgrounds, caravan parks, properties, but we know we have a range of accommodation types on the call, and this information can apply to all of them. After the session, we will be sharing this on YouTube as well as the Newbook knowledge base for any existing Newbook clients. So what can you expect to take away from this webinar? First, we're going to learn more about Hipcamp, how they work, and Lisa and Jordy will be sharing some helpful tips and tricks and just some industry insights that they've learned as well. So with all that being said, I'm so excited to introduce Jordy Tennant and Lisa Barnes from Hipcamp. Now,
Thanks.
Jordy and Lisa, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do at Hipcamp, and maybe just a brief overview of what Hipcamp is.
Yeah, of course. So thanks, Lisa. That was such a lovely intro. So my name is Jordy. I have been at Hipcamp for 5 years now. And I actually came from UCamp, which was UCamp started in Australia years ago. And then when we merged with Hipcamp, yeah, anyway, sorry. And so I've been with Hipcamp for 5 years, and Hipcamp is an online travel agency or an OTA where people come to find places to camp, to glamp, to park their caravan. We're Australia's #1 app for campers looking for places to camp. And I've been at Hipcamp for 5 years, and my role is I'm the Senior Supply Acquisition Manager. And it's a fancy way of saying that I work with new hosts and new campgrounds, and I help support them in getting set up on the platform. So helping them create a beautiful listing, helping them set up their PMS integration if there is one, and not just helping them set it up, but really ensuring that it is optimized for long-term success on the platform. So yeah, that's what I do. And Lisa is part of my my team on the supply team.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks
Lisa.
for joining.
Thank you. Jordy's pretty much covered it all. I'm in the supply team as well. I've also been at Hipcamp almost 5 years. And yeah, excited to be here today.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like two great people to have on the call. I know that people getting started out using Hipcamp and integrating that with Newbook have a lot of questions about how to get set up, how to set up their property for success. So really excited to hear what you can share with us today. And I have to ask you both, would you say that you're campers or glampers?
I used to be. I'm a camper. At my core, I'm a camper. I, grew up camping. I live on the New South Wales South Coast, grown up here. But I, throughout my early childhood, we camped. Then early adulthood, I was in the swag. Then me and my partner evolved to a rooftop tent. And now I have 2 kids and a dog, and I'm very much going through my cabin stage. we've purchased a family tent, so I'm really hoping we get back to that sort of camping, back to the tent life. So.
Sure. Love it. What about you, Lisa?
Definitely a camper. I've got a rooftop tent on my car, which I love using as much as I can.
Love it. See, this is what I mean. Passionate about the industry. You guys are in it. I myself am a bit more of a glamper, but that's okay. To each their own. All right. Well, very excited to get started. So let's kick off. Let's start with the basics. Who is the typical hip camp guest? How would you describe their travel style, age group, or what they're generally looking for when booking a stay?
So there's no typical one guest on Hipcamp. Globally, we've got 7 million users, but in Australia specifically, we've got 1.3 million registered users. And it's a really, really diverse range. So all ages, all different camping styles, some glampers, some tent campers, a lot of caravanners. However, we know that 75% of our users are under the age of 55. They tend to be, a lot of young couples, young families. Our community is typically broader and more diverse than the industry average. And that's probably in large part to, we have a really mobile first approach and we really invest in our app. So at our core, we are a tech company. And our users tend to be quite tech savvy as well. They also tend to be higher income earners. So we know that the average salary of our users is over 100K. Another interesting characteristic of our community is that around 43% of them camp at least 5 times a year. So they're really regular campers, they're experienced campers. And we see bookings typically, well, more than 50%, I think it's 53% of bookings are for midweek and off-peak periods. So
Interesting.
yeah, strange, but younger and tech-savvy sort of audience.
Excellent. Yes, and I know our Newbook's data tells us that each year the mobile audience grows more and more and is now surpassing the desktop audience. So important to meet your guests where they are. And right now they're on their mobiles. So very important to have a really mobile responsive app for booking experience. Excellent. Have you noticed any guest trends that operators should be aware of?
Yes, couple to point out. We saw same-day bookings grow by 33% last year. So a lot of people are looking at things really last minute. So there's definitely opportunity there to increase revenue if you can be flexible in accepting those last minute bookings. I'm not suggesting you have someone at your reception desk till midnight, but find a way to be available to take those on because 33% growth, same day bookings last year. Another big one to call out, which has always been growing or it's been growing for the last couple of years, is pet-friendly stays. So we saw a 46% year-on-year increase in pet-friendly stays. And, that's typically people traveling with their dogs. And on Hipcamp, the pet-friendly filter is actually the most used filter. So people, I travel with my dog as well. I know Lisa travels with her dogs. So if you aren't already pet friendly, there's real opportunity there to reach a wider audience. And, a lot of parks, it doesn't need to be sort of pet friendly all the time. A lot of parks will have certain cabins that are pet friendly, only certain sites or a certain area of the park. It could also be just pet friendly at certain times of the year. Maybe in those quieter periods, you could be pet friendly or midweek. And you can put other real limitations on it. I was speaking to a campground host the other day and they have a list of breeds that they simply don't allow. So there are lots of rules you can put around it, but definitely if you aren't pet friendly, consider it. Another trend that we've seen internally in our community is a real shift towards more established campgrounds. So if you knew Hipcamp 5 years ago, we really focused on private land camping. We were really known for that space. I remember saying to hosts when they come on board, our users don't want to stay in caravan parks. They want to be by themselves in a bush location, no one around. But we started to notice that they actually wanted more than that. They wanted more choice, more amenities. Our campers were changing and shifting. Like I said, I used to be in a swag wanting to be in the bush, and now I look for campgrounds with cabins. So it's an area that we started to really focus on. We bring more and more commercial properties on board. We set up some PMS integrations, and it's really paying off. So it's an area of focus and growth for us at the moment. And recently we've seen 78% higher bookings for professional campgrounds this year compared to last year. So it's, yeah, that's another trend that we're seeing there.
That's really interesting. And just another reason for properties to be listing on Hipcamp, because you might be catching that camper as they're making that transition from being a more, out in the middle of nowhere camper to suddenly wanting to be somewhere with more amenities or just wanting that choice. And so listing on Hipcamp is how you're going to capture that audience. Jordy, you gave me two really good actionable tips. So if people are taking notes, these are two things that you can write down that you can actually go back and action today. So the first one being the same day bookings. Check your settings, make sure it's something that you allow if you are looking to attract more bookings. Obviously, that's a trend to be aware of. Something feedback that I've gotten as well from my clients is that also limiting those minimum stays. We work with a lot of properties that will do like a 2-night minimum stay for their glamping units. But you'll find that a lot of these, guests are coming to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary, and maybe they just want to be there to celebrate one night. So you can maybe look at your minimum bookings as well. And then that second actionable tip was the pet filter. So whether you're pet friendly or not, have a look at that. But also maybe you are pet friendly, but you just don't have that filter set correctly to where guests can find you that way. So make sure that you are set up if you are using Hipcamp to show as pet friendly. So thank you so much for those tips. That's awesome. All right, now moving on to the next question. Not every park has a big marketing budget. What are some of the most effective, free, or low-cost ways you've seen operators increase bookings?
Number one, OTAs, like Hipcamp. So it really is the quickest way to reach a mass audience and a new audience as well. But my advice with that is not to spread yourself too thinly and list with multiple OTAs. You set up the listing, you want to keep that listing up to date. So you still do need to, there's a little bit of admin work there to still make sure that the listing performs well. It's better to have one really strong listing on one OTA than sort of a couple of mediocre listings on a few. And what I mean by a strong listing is one that really starts to grow a lot of reviews, has a really good review portfolio, and one that really has a presence, because those sort of things will help you top the algorithm in the search results on that OTA. So, as I said, better to perform strongly in one than sort of not really perform in multiple. So that's one tip with OTAs. Look for an OTA that integrates with your PMS comprehensively, far less work for you. And try and go industry specific. So look for an OTA that really speaks to your audience or the audience you want to access. So go camping specific, something like Hipcamp. Personally, I recommend, going with Hipcamp as your one OTA, but then also really focusing on building your Google reviews as well. Those Google reviews will lead to direct bookings and drive people to your website. So it doesn't sort of gate you to an OTA. So I think those two things are really good to focus on. Beyond OTAs, another sort of marketing area would be social media. So social media is the biggest free marketing platform that you can access. And if you aren't doing it already, you really should be. It's so effective. And it's not about just posting content for content's sake, like it sort of used to be, where content was king and you just throw up lots of posts. But to really make it effective, you want to harness the social side of social media, and that's all about that community building aspect. So things like find ways to sort of prompt and incentivize your guests to share their experience when they're in your park. Share their experience on their social accounts, tagging your social accounts, and you want them to tag and sort of engage with your social pages. So things like prompting them through making sure that your social media handles are on your check-in material or that they're on display around the park, things like that. And you can incentivize them. So things like offering a free coffee if they post a photo on their social account and tag you. Free, I've seen others offer free marshmallow toasting kits. I'm a big fan of the marshmallow toasting kit. So you can incentivize them with that. You can run like a competition perhaps where there's a monthly prize for the best content, things like that. And eventually what you get is a community of people who they become your marketers. They build the content for you. So your job almost gets a little bit easier. We have some pretty good resources on using Facebook and Instagram to promote your Hipcamp. And a lot of these principles can be applied for just promoting your website as well. So I'm going to actually share that in the chat. Oh, I think Bridget already
I
has.
think Bridget already shared it. So everyone have a look in the chat. You can see a link to that.
Yeah. And it is very, Hipcamp specific, but you can still take a lot from it. So there's that, OTA, social media. And thirdly, photography is images are an incredibly useful asset for you to have. On Hipcamp, listings that have professional photography get 3 times more clicks and 35% more bookings than those that don't. So it really makes an impact. So have a look at the photos you have and see if perhaps you can update your imagery. Look on your website and on your listings. Yeah, can you update your photos? Are your photos comprehensive? Do they really show everything that you offer? Is there space for a gallery on your website where you can put lots of photos in? A lot of people just shop using images. I know when I'm searching for places to stay with my husband, he will only look at the photos. He'll say, yep, that looks good. And then I'll be the one to read more detail and be, hang on, okay, I'll read more detail and find out if it's actually going to suit us. But so images, great images. They can also be used again and again on your marketing materials, on social media, on your website, on your listings. So yeah, great photography is something you can do. It doesn't have to be professional photography either. Like whilst that's great, there is a cost there. You can take some pretty good photos on your phones these days, just nice bright photos, wide angles, people in the shots, things like that. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much a photo-driven consumer, and the more the better. Show me all the angles so I know what I'm dealing with. And I'm surprised by how many websites I see that have either blurry images or not enough images, and it's just such a simple way to bring in more guests. We do have a question. Let me just read through this. Thank you. But during low season, it is crucial to be visible across all relevant OTAs for best exposure. You need a channel manager to ensure your availability is up to date. And as you are getting bookings, you can close any OTAs and leave only one or just your direct booking channel. Yes, to what Georgie is buying special items. So not necessarily a question, but just a comment to be available on more OTAs. And just a comment on that from Newbook's side. So, when we look at our database and we look at the bookings over the past year of our OTA channels, we find that Hipcamp is the highest performing OTA in the outdoor hospitality specific niche. Obviously we work with Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia. Those tend to bring in large numbers, more so for roofed accommodation cabins. But when we're just looking at, the outdoor hospitality OTAs, Hipcamp is the highest performing. So a great OTA to start with if you are new to using them. So thanks, Jackie, for that comment. All right, well, that was really helpful as well. How important is it for operators to think beyond just listing on Hipcamp?
Very. So we know that 98% of bookings for campgrounds that come through Hipcamp are new customers to a campground. So it's a good way to get booking new customers to your park quickly. But once that customer is through the gate, that is really where your opportunity is to, one, turn that guest into a repeat guest, and two, to access their network. So, access their family and their community. So you really, really want to nurture that guest. There's so much value in there. The hard work is done, the booking is done, but that is not job done. So make sure that you're getting things like their contact details, their birthdays, noting down, what type of camp setup they have, things like that, so that you can then really curate your outreach that's really going to speak to them. Things like when I mentioned trying to turn them into a repeat customer. So obviously a great guest experience goes towards that. But also things like loyalty programs can be really helpful. Discounts for loyal guests. And again, something that can help access their friends and their network. You could offer them referral bonuses if they referred their friends to stay, things like that. I know that there's quite a few robust tools that Newbook has that can help support in those efforts as well. Or maybe you want to sort of touch on those.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, the loyalty programs, memberships, that's definitely an option that you can pursue with Newbook. We highly recommend getting that guest direct contact details. So when they leave the property, you can then follow up with automated outreach, for a survey. You can encourage them to leave those public reviews, and then you can use them for future marketing campaigns. So like Jordy mentioned, getting the birthdays, but also asking for custom information, which is, you can put in custom fields of information about a guest in Newbook. So you could be asking them about certain interests they have. And then if you host an event around that interest in the future, you can make sure that that gets marketed towards them. So definitely utilizing Newbook's marketing tools is a great way to continue that relationship past the stay, and also just improves the guest experience overall. Yeah, so great tips. Midweek and off-season periods can be tough to fill. Do you have any smart strategies to drive bookings during those quieter periods?
I don't have any silver bullet for that, unfortunately. That would be really nice. But on Hipcamp, 57% of our bookings are for midweek and off-peak periods. So, and that's not something we intentionally set out to do. It just kind of happened naturally. So listing with Hipcamp would help in filling those gaps. But other than that, I think practical tips, things like pricing, make sure that you're, perhaps offering midweek discounts, things like that. Make sure your pricing is set up for those quieter periods. Dynamic pricing is a big one as well. I know that can be done through Newbook, and we can pull, Hipcamp can pull dynamic pricing through to your listing as well. And I think it was the CIAA conference recently. I didn't attend, but I watched a presentation, and it was a Newbook client speaking about dynamic pricing. And she mentioned, Lauren, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but she mentioned that she started using the dynamic pricing tool, and I think saw a 250K increase in her revenue in 12-month period. That's massive. So if you aren't using the dynamic pricing tool, absolutely look at that. Other things you can do in those quieter periods, typically you have more flexibility and you can create packages around that. So not only offering, discounted rates for stays then, but no minimum night stays. I think like you mentioned before, Lauren, no minimum night stays, later checkouts, double loyalty points, things like that. So you can create really nice sort of midweek or off-peak packages. Other things, again, using the Newbook tools. So talked about dynamic pricing. There is that the SMS system that you guys have that can be used quite effectively. So that can be things like offering an upgrade at a discounted rate, a couple of days before they arrive. You could also upsell an extra night while they're on. And while they're on at the campground. And I don't have data around this, but I know that it works because it worked on me. I was staying down, I booked a weekend stay, with my family. We were in our pet-friendly cabin down at the Eden Ingenia on the south coast of New South Wales, not too far from home, about an hour and a half from home. And I think it was the Saturday afternoon when the text came through to say, hey, I hope you're enjoying your stay. Would you like to book in another night at this discounted rate? And you know, when you're on holidays, we didn't want to return to the real world. We did have work the next day, but we were close enough to home that we could you know, quite easily just get back in the morning, get back in time to work. And so we booked it, and we didn't even consider staying the Sunday night until we got that text. So, you know, things like that, yeah, just little nudges like that, I think really help.
Absolutely. I've definitely fallen victim to the late checkout text myself a few times.
Yeah.
Yes, please. A few more hours would be nice. Amazing. Yeah, some great actionable tips again. To appreciate that. I hope everyone's taking notes. So from your perspective, what makes a listing really stand out on HipCamp? Are there any common threads among those that consistently perform well? I know we've touched on photography, but if you want to go deeper on that or any other tips you might have.
Yes, this is my area.
Okay.
So yes, photography. I am going to bang on about it though, because it is so important. It is really the most impactful thing you can do specifically for your HipCamp listing to help it perform. So again, I think, what did I say before? 3 times more clicks on listings that have professional photography and 35% more bookings, which is significant. We know it works so well that we actually do have a professional photography program at HipCamp. And what that means, it gives access to our host, or it allows our host to access professional photographers. We arrange it for them to come take beautiful photos, upload them to your listing. These photographers are campers themselves. They'll often have their own gear, their own setup, and they know what people are looking for. So they'll take some beautiful photos, upload them to your listing. And they're also a guest, so they'll leave a review as well. And there is a small cost for it. I think it's 100 or 150, depending on the host. But it's not you don't pay for that up front. You just recoup that from bookings. And typically hosts pay it back within 1 or 2 bookings. But it really does make a difference. So we do have that program there for hosts as well.
Do you have a link for that that Lisa can pop in the chat as well?
Perhaps Lisa, if you could find it. Sorry, I should have grabbed that beforehand.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. So other things to make a HipCamp listing stand out, really clear detail is really important. I will often speak to a host and they've got this really lovely description about their campground, and they talk about, you know, the beautiful sunsets, and it's very tranquil and you'll feel very relaxed, and it's a world away from anywhere. And that beautiful language is lovely, and there's definitely a place for that. But really, people just want to know exactly what they're booking or what they're looking at and whether it's going to suit them. So really clear detail, so people know exactly what to expect, and exactly what you're offering there. Obviously, reviews are a big one as well. Reviews really make a HipCamp listing stand out. So a lot of positive reviews. And you know, things you can do to drive those reviews, obviously a really positive guest interaction, but just linking back to that clear detail comment, you want to make sure there's that clear detail so that expectations are set correctly, so that when people get there, they're not going to be disappointed, which could lead to bad reviews. So really setting expectations correctly. But the number one tip I have for reviews, beyond just giving people a great experience, is so at HipCamp, we prompt a guest to leave a review. We'll send them an automated email, give them a couple of reminders as well, but nothing is more effective than you having a lovely chat to the guest, making a connection and just asking them, like just saying, you know, welcome to HipCamp. We're really trying to build our review portfolio. It really helps our business. Please leave us a review. So I always encourage new hosts to really focus on that. Other things that really help a listing perform is allowing campfires and allowing pets, like I talked about before. So pets and campfires, 2 really big ones there. And also, lastly, instant book. So on HipCamp, you've got the option to instant book or request to book, but people really want their answers quite quickly. They want to know if you are a campground who's competing with other campgrounds, it's the one that's going to say yes first to a booking that has the advantage. So we always sort of recommend going on Instant Book. I think Instant Book properties get 33% more bookings than request to book. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's a huge difference. So another great tip. Great. Well, those are some really good tips. Absolutely. The reviews, also having a QR code in the room where they can leave a review, or QR code at the front desk, can help encourage reviews. On our last webinar, Ali mentioned that there is a way to import Google reviews onto the Hipcamp reviews. Is that something that's available? He said you can put about 5 to 10 Google reviews into the Hipcamp listing directly.
Okay. I am not aware of that. I will check with
News
Ali.
to you.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Lisa, do you know about
Maybe
that?
US specific?
It could potentially be US specific, but we
Okay.
can definitely ask the product team if that's something we can do here. It's
Awesome.
a great idea.
Just a way to, I guess, get started if they're new to getting reviews, but something to
Yes.
look into. Cool. All right. Now, we've seen some hosts get creative with their listing, offering things like firewood, like you mentioned, or farm experiences. Are there any standout examples you can share that led to noticeably higher revenue?
I know that the most popular add-ons are things like firewood, ice, gas bottles, things like that. And yeah, we do have this extras function. So it allows people to sort of just add add-ons at the time of checkout, which is really handy. It's a feature a lot of our hosts use, and they use quite effectively. And typically the extras are sort of between $10 to $30. So let me think. The firewood, I think, is the biggest one that people add on. There's real sort of upsell in adding things on arrival that people might already have purchased anyway on the way, but if they can organize it all the time of booking, that's so convenient sales. So things like barbecue packs or breakfast items also perform really well. So again, they might have purchased them anyway, but isn't it nice to have it already thought of? Gear rental is another one that we see used a lot as well. So, I mean, that could be just, renting some camp chairs, but it also could be actually renting a tent that is already set up for them. So things like that perform really well. Another sort of booking add-on that does very well is the late checkout that we talked about before. So, for hosts that offer a late checkout for a fee, we see around about a 12% attachment rate. And that leads to about 10% increased revenue. So for that booking. So yeah, extras are great. They help make things really easy and convenient for people. And then yeah, late checkout fees.
Excellent. Ali mentioned that the number one upsell in the US at least is farm fresh eggs.
Eggs. Yes, eggs.
So
We are obsessed with eggs at Hipcamp. We actually have so we have this we use Slack to just have chats with our teams, and we actually have an egg channel dedicated to eggs. And I remember we used to even have an egg counter, and I think there was some celebration when we hit like 1 million eggs sold on Hipcamp or something like that. But isn't that appealing to have farm fresh eggs there when you arrive? Like, oh, that's something I would add on. Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah. So if you have chickens on your property, there you go. Get creative with activities or experiences that you can offer, with this demographic, specifically millennials. Typically, they are more experience driven. So, get creative with what you have available. Maybe it's a farm tour, maybe it's wine tasting, who knows? But yeah, definitely lean into that more experience based option. We do have a question in the chat. Can Newbook selectively auto send pre-arrival emails to OTA bookers as opposed to direct bookings? Yes. So within Newbook, when you set up your automated communications, you can filter those communications based on the source of the booking. So if somebody has booked through Hipcamp, they can receive a different pre-arrival or confirmation versus somebody who booked direct. to answer your question, Mark. Thanks for that. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I'd love to hear some more real life stories from your clients. Do you have any case studies that you can share with us?
Yes, we do. We have an Ingenia case study, which I'm going to throw to Lisa on this one. She worked very closely with Ingenia on this project, and it's something she should be really proud of. So I will let Lisa tell you all about that.
Thank you. Yes, so we have partnered with Ingenia Holidays to onboard all 40 of their parks. We did turn around that onboarding process in a matter of about a week for all of those parks. Since this launch, which was September of last year, we have driven over $400,000 in bookings to Ingenia properties, which is amazing. Our Hipcamp users so far have made more than 2,500 bookings with an average order value of $160. So we're seeing some really great results. Ingenia are also maintaining an average positive review rate of 91%, which is really, really great. And at this pace, Ingenia are on track to clear $750,000 in bookings from Hipcamp in 2025. The team at Ingenia have been amazing to deal with, and we're super excited to see where this partnership goes and for the future of it. But I did just want to add as well that it's really worth noting that it's not just big enterprises that are seeing strong performance. We're also seeing like really great results across a number of our smaller independent parks, and that's something that we're really proud of too.
Yeah, that is huge. Thank you, Lisa. And yes, we are talking about a larger group of properties, but with those kind of numbers, if you reduce that down to scale, that's still a significant impact on revenue. So really exciting to hear that Ingenia is having such a great experience with Hipcamp. Well, thank you so much for this insightful discussion, all of the tips and pointers that you've shared so far. But what are 3 things you would want viewers to take away from this webinar?
I wrote these down because I want to make sure that I hit them. So 1, you don't need a big marketing budget to reach more campers. So it's free to list on Hipcamp, and it's the quickest way to reach a mass audience of new customers. And it specifically targets campers, glampers, caravanners, and that sort of crowd. And because it runs directly from Newbook, it doesn't involve any extra work. We actually set the listing up for you. And we set the PMS integration up working with Newbook. So, it's a very easy lift and you'll see very quick results. Number 2, your customers are your biggest marketing asset. So in today's, excuse me.
It's okay.
In a lot of digital sharing, your customers are your marketers. So get them sharing on social media, get them reviewing online, and then use that social proof to really drive your business. And my 3rd point that I want to drive home is I am here, Lisa's here. We are real people. You can call us. We work very closely with our marketing team. We want to help you. So please ask us questions, get in touch with us. We would love to have a chat and help support you.
Yeah, they're definitely not AI people. They are real people here to help you. All right, well, I'm going to share my screen just to share a couple more resources from Hipcamp. Now, we've also shared those links in the chat. So make sure you click on those to get the Instagram and photography resources that Jordy mentioned. And then if you wanted to go ahead and scan this QR code for more resources, you can download that Ingenia case study or book a call with Jordy to learn more. I'll be in touch after the webinar as well. So if you have any Newbook specific questions, I'll make sure that that gets into the right hands. And like I said, the recording for this will be available on YouTube or the knowledge base. So I want to say thank you so much to Jordy and Lisa for being generous with your time today. It was great to get to know more about Hipcamp. I'm really excited on behalf of our clients for this opportunity. Great way to increase bookings, especially for those who don't have a huge marketing spend. So thanks again for sharing those incredible insights with us.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, guys. Everyone, enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks again.
Bye.
All right, bye.